Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Old Hunt, where we are still celebrating 10 years of Bloodborne. Last time, we made our way through the deeper portion of the Forbidden Woods. We're getting very deep now, almost so deep that we've encountered the boss. Not quite there yet, but we'll get there, especially as we unlocked some very important shortcuts to bring us very quickly back to where we left off. And I discovered this Graveguard set, which is of potentially great significance to the lore. Talked about that last time. And we also found some aliens in the woods. That's sort of the first hint that we get, the sort of very strong first hint. You could potentially run into other ones, but this is probably the point at which everybody who's playing Bloodborne first has the strongest possibility of realizing this isn't just werewolves and vampires and things and like beasts in the streets. There's something very weird going on here, and it involves creatures from above, right? They've got these alien creatures running around and something weird is happening there. So that was all been very exciting. And I'm about to head back into the woods, but before I quite do that, there is one more somewhat important item that I want to make sure that I read before we get too much further in the game, because I'm slowly going through my stockpile of items that I haven't read. And the ones that I think are important enough are getting mentioned again here. And I think this particular Shaman Boneblade is worth bringing up. And literally, the title here isn't necessarily Shaman, right? It's like Ritualist, right? The bone knife or the bone blade of the Ritualist. It could be ritualists. I think it's probably referring to one, but it could be one of many. Again, this is Japanese. We don't have any articles to tell us what exactly is going on here. But, ritualist's bone knife might be a somewhat more literal translation. I think shaman bone blade sounds better and conveys the same sort of idea, but maybe that's just me. Anyway, that's the title. Relatively straightforward. Let's move on to the description here. Okay, a knife of bone slathered in a strange cerebrospinal fluid. I'm just going to use the official term. The Watchers of the Ruins, particularly ritualists, that same term from the title, use this ritual implement, right? So technically I did a little bit of jumbling around, right? I started translating from the start of the line here, which Japanese sort of have to jump back and forth. Ended up working out for me. I sort of lucked out in this particular instance. But if I was being even more literal, right, it's all this stuff is sort of modifying ritual item at the very end, right? So ritual item used by the Watchers of the Underground Ruins, in particular used by ritualists, right? So that all sort of comes together to form that phrase. But you get the idea, right? This is why it's called the Ritualist's Bone Knife, is that there are people in the Chalice dungeons, right? The underground labyrinth, the underground ruins, that are the Tomb of the Gods, right? You got to keep all these different words for the same sort of area, and got to keep that in mind, right? So there's the Watchers of the Ruins, and among them in particular, there are certain ones that are ritualists, right? So just like we have the mad ritualist of the Forbidden Woods in the Graveguard, right? They've got countless bloody implements hanging from the back, right? Let me turn around here. And can I switch out the sword for something? Yeah, this makes it a little bit easier to see, right? You've got the countless ritual implements hanging from its back here. And even on the front, I was noticing you've got, looks like a set of scissors, maybe? You got a little pouch in the front that's got some ritual tools at the ready there. So there's maybe a little bit of a parallel happening here, because we have rituals happening in the Forbidden Woods related to possibly defending these forbidden graves, right? The graves of the Forbidden Woods. And meanwhile, we have down in the underground ruins, let me get back to the appropriate item description here. Here we go. Down in the underground ruins, we have the Watchers, who, among those defenders of the underground ruins, Watchers, I think, do a little bit more than just defend, but they are, in Japanese, very explicitly called defenders, right? Mamoribito or Moribito. I looked at, I'm I've been confused because there's an anime series that I've watched, and I think there's also related to a manga called Seirei no Moribito, and it uses the exact same kanji formulation to be read as Moribito, but when I looked it up in the dictionary reading was Maboribito. It doesn't change the meaning, right? It just changes the reading in the Japanese, and that sort of threw me off. So, oops. My anime watching habits have sort of altered my initial sense for what this reading should be. Either way, it's very explicitly calling these creatures defenders of the underground ruins, the chalice dungeons, the underground labyrinth, all these different terms for what this place is. They are defenders. So among the defenders, there are certain ritualists, which means they must be performing rituals down there, and they use these weird bone blades. So the bone blades are explicitly identified as ritual items. So there's an interesting potential parallel happening there. Haven't thought too hard about that, but I like it. I like the idea of paralleling the Forbidden Woods and the underground ruins. Just like I like the idea of saying that the Grave Guard was in particular guarding the area that may or may not have been related to the entrance to the Chalice Dungeons themselves in the quote-unquote real world. I don't know. There's a lot of speculation in there, and it sort of runs a little bit ahead of where we've been so far, I think we're going to go there in this episode, though, so I don't mind speculating about it a little bit anyway at this point. Anyway, let's move on to the second section of this particular description. Okay, that green-colored cerebrospinal fluid causes a temporary numbing of consciousness and drops the target that is cut into a state where they're unable to account for their actions, right? Maybe like a fugue state, right? So it drops the target that's been cut into a fugue state. Might be another way of putting that. I don't know if that's, because fugue state I think is somewhat medical terminology. It might be slightly different than zengo fukaku, right? It's very literally like unaware of front and back, but that's a little bit too literal from the Japanese there, I think. The idea is that they have no idea what's going on. They can't account for their actions. So, and then mechanically, I don't think the description ever fully spells this out, but mechanically what happens if you use this particular item and you stab it into an enemy, it flips their attacker, right? So normally the enemies that would attack you instead turn around and they attack their buddies. And you can make enemies fight each other, provided they're, enemies that can be affected by this particular item. So it makes sense that while this is happening, they're in a little bit of a fugue state. They're unable to account for their actions. They don't know what's going on. So that's a little bit of a roundabout way of giving the player the idea of how this item could be used. It was too subtle for me, right? Like, the first time I played this game, I had no idea what this item was for, whether it was any good, and I basically never used it. And it wasn't until the DLC came out and there's a particular pair of enemies that it's great if you happen to use one of these items on them. At that time, I figured out what this was and was like, oh, maybe I should have been using this more throughout the rest of the game. But they are a little bit careful. They only let you have so many at a time, and they're very difficult to obtain, especially early on in the game. So you can't run around right from the start turning enemies against each other and avoiding the intended experience that way. But it is cool that they give you this option. And I think it would be interesting at some point to play around with just making as many enemies fight each other as possible with these sorts of items. I think that would be an interesting playthrough. I've never tried it. I've never even really thought about it before, but I bet that would be fun. Is if you had to, I think you can carry 3 of them on your person at any given time. And I think it would be fun to find the 3 enemies in an area, which is these are the times I'm going to use the Shaman Bone Blade, and use your own weapons as sparingly as possible so that you can maximize the use of these Shaman Bone Blades. I think that could be fun. But I've distracted myself again. So let's go back to the final portion of this description here. Perhaps because this was not intended for use in combat, its knife is dull, and it must be plunged in deep, right? Must cut down deep and doing so unfortunately causes it to break. So there's your information that, right, it creates this effect that it alludes to a little bit too subtly for me of turning enemies against each other. And one of the ways that they're able to explain the fact that this is a consumable item, this isn't like some of the fake consumables, like where the old hunter bone would be one example, the beast roar would be another, where they're under the consumable label in the inventory, but they're never used up. Shaman bone blades get used up, and the way that they explain that in the like lore of the world of the game is by saying, you know, these were never really intended for combat. They're intended for these rituals taking place in the underground labyrinth. And so you have to shove them in real deep, and they're dull and they're brittle and they break apart. Because normally, I guess, in the rituals they're used in, they're used against foes that are, like, already incapacitated somehow. Maybe. That's pure speculation on my part, but that might stand to reason, right? The original intended use is ritualistic, cutting something with this knife as that can no longer defend itself, and it's purely ritualistic usage. So maybe. Also, I think there's a little bit of an implication, because I don't know why they would otherwise call so much attention to the suspicious cerebrospinal fluid, right? There is this implication that that fluid is sort of what creates this disruptive effect. Maybe getting at the idea, hinting very subtly again at the idea that sort of like blood can alter your behavior, this cerebrospinal fluid can alter your behavior, and it's affecting your nervous system. So it's influencing like your brain and your memories, how you think, what you can remember, and causing you to turn against, friend and foe, and interrupts your thought processes that way. Maybe, right? It's a lot of work being done by implication. So a lot of that's interpretive, right? If you just read through the description, it doesn't really spell that out. But it is interesting to think about. So that's why I wanted to cover this item, because it's sort of intriguing to me. Also, I thought of that interesting connection, I think, to the Forbidden Woods. But, take or leave however much of that as you would like. I think it's fascinating. But more important is we get back to our explorations of the Forbidden Woods. So I'm going to warp back in there now. All right, and we're back in the Forbidden Woods, going straight into the shortcut, which thankfully they're somewhat generous on that staircase up in a way that they were not the last time I was taking this shortcut and got stuck on those stairs trying to come the other way. Also, just in case, I'm going to send the elevator back up because, there's a good chance I'll die against the boss here. Wait, I need to go this way, not the other way. Catching myself. Actually, I need to go first this way and then that way. I've managed to already turn myself around. And you know what? Nope. When you were a free backstab, you interested me. But you're not actually a free backstab. You turned around to notice me, so forget it. I'm just gonna run ahead. Forget it. I don't think the enemy follows us all the way in here anyway. And even if they did, they won't be able to catch us on this platform. Aha! So long. I will be sending this elevator back up as well once we arrive. Here we are. Let's see if we have more success. Is it back? Ready to go? Okay, ready to go. Cool. And, okay, that's all set up. Now, let's see if we have more success sneaking up on this snake-headed foe. It looks like, gotta be careful of those tiny little graves. Looks like it's actually positioned very carefully. Yeah, so that won't happen. So, I'm gonna go ahead. Let's do some blood bullets, I think. Early, of course. Early again. There we go. Gotta be in the second part of that two-phase grab in order to get that parry. Okay. But that snake enemy is now no more. Don't mind being down the one blood vial. Did I thought I had a communion rune equipped. Did I change that? I don't remember changing that. Maybe I did. I have zero memory of that. Wait, if I go to my runes, it'll have in red the ones that I have equipped. Lake. Communion. Okay. So I should be having another blood vial available right now that I just don't have available for some reason. That's nice to know. 1.00. Oh yeah, I don't know if I said it at the intro. We're playing the Japanese version of 1.00. That's the game that we're playing here. As you probably have fully figured out from the fact that the description I pulled up earlier was in Japanese, and I just mentioned now that we're playing 1.00. I think that gave it away. I thought there was another boar here, too. Maybe there is, and I'm in for some pain. Let's find out. Just, make my way over here. Don't mind me. There we are. Yeah, I keep expecting there to be another boar. Because I swear... Oh, now I'm at 21. Maybe the bug is when I warp into the area, it starts me at 20 because that's the normal default. But my actual maximum has, in fact, been raised to 21. So I need to acquire one in the place where I warp in. Oh, maybe. That would be interesting. Interesting version of that bug. 1.00. Also, I swear, there's another boar. Like, we watched it walk by in the other episode, so... Maybe that's it. Maybe it was already done with its little patrol, and it ends up over there. I don't know. We should be able to come under here as well. Here we are. I don't know if they expect us to come in this direction. Okay, they do. The other direction is the unexpected one, so let's go the other way. Oh, that enemy right there, by the way, is another strong candidate for zombies. I forget which episode it was that I was mentioning the candidates. Oh, they're ready whichever way you come. Great. Fantastic. I forget exactly which episode it was that I was talking about Bloodborne having multiple candidates for zombies. I've totally forgot about these enemies, but I think they are actually quite good candidates. Uh-oh. Trees too low. Haha! Double kill. I like that. These are great candidates for zombies. No. Lock on, please. All right, now, I know the trees are low, so I'm not going to strike down at you. There we go. I was hoping the R2 would connect, and it did not disappoint. All right, hello there. I think, yeah, we're going to need strike number 3 to finish you off. Yeah, except they don't have legs. Maybe this is like, deformed zombie sort of thing, right? They've been in the swamp water for too long. Their legs fell off. That happens to zombies. Okay, and there's, I think that's Dissipating Lake, right? So this is bringing my mind back to the sort of catalog that we've been doing. Dissipating Lake? Yes, Dissipating Lake. So this is a new rune, right? But it's exactly what? Oh. I was comparing it with a different room. I was like, uh-oh, has everything I've discovered been a lie? No, actually, these two, as you can see, the only thing that's changing is the third line down. We're getting the change from physical attack down here, the physical damage cut, to lightning, bolt, the bolt damage cut, right? Which one of those do you want to raise? That's the only difference between these two. So, bringing me back to the idea of cataloging novel items in the Forbidden Woods. Okay, yeah, we get a new lake rune, but it doesn't really tell us much of anything about lake runes, right? Nothing we didn't already know. It just gives us a variation on something that we do already know about. Oh, also, I don't think I necessarily brought this up, but this is one, thing that I like about the repeated text. I've mentioned this in Translation Born. I think it's cool, right? We have both the lake and the deep sea runes that... And I've mentioned this before, they have the same first line, which shows that one way or another, both of these are not ascribed to Carol. They're just transcriptions of inhuman voices or sounds. And the very final line, they're united by the fact that they're large bodies of water, right? So we have the deep sea, which has this portion at the bottom that talks about large bodies of water serving as a severance guarding sleep. And then we have... same exact thing on the lake, right? So you're getting an idea of they're both large bodies of water, and they both provide protection, but just like the two different sorts of large bodies of water, right? Sea as opposed to lake, they have slightly, they're not exactly the same, despite that overlap, because the defenses that they augment when they provide this severance to protect sleep, right? The thing that they are protecting, that they're bulwark, that's the word I'm looking for. The thing that they're providing a bulwark against is slightly different, right? The deep sea runes, they're strengthening your resistance to things like the slow poison buildup or the frenzy buildup, right? It's that sort of protection. Whereas the lake runes, they're protecting you against physical damage. They're protecting you against bolt damage, right? So the different damage types that enemies do to you directly, the large bodies of water that are lakes will defend you against. The slow build-up things that need to, like, fill up a meter, like frenzy or slow poison, that's the sort of thing that the deep sea will protect you from. Another large body of water bolstering one of your defenses, but a tangibly different sort of defense. And I love how those two things are just correlated like that. It's really cool. Some of the, like, patterns that you can get out of studying the runes are some of the things that I think is the most fun. And I think part of it is that these are things that I'm sure other people have thought of these things before. I'm not smart enough to be, I don't think, the first person to have brought this to anyone's attention, but I did discover these things on my own through careful study of the text, and so it makes me feel like I really worked something out, right? To be like, oh, look at the way that this works. I just think it's cool. I think that's a nice, small attention to detail that they never really draw your attention to, but is subtly at work in the background the whole time there with those runes. All right. I was way too far away. Okay. Will I have enough for 3? Yes, I will. I'll go into negative stamina, but that won't matter. Okay, I'll just attack you from the side. And I still have enough for swing number 3. That's good. It's important. Annoying as it is to go into negative stamina when there's no other enemies around. Alright, this boar might be a problem if it notices me. But fortunately, it doesn't seem to have noticed me. Go hang out somewhere where I can kill you more easily. Alright, thank you for following my minute instructions. I'm just going to continue to not attract your attention. And just sort of slowly slip up here behind you. Don't mind me. Luck out. Totally not get hit by the ambush that was cleverly set up to catch people who are doing exactly what I was doing. Yeah, I'll get that drop in a second. Uh-oh. He was fast enough to interrupt me. My second strike there. Alright, cool. That boar probably dropped some blood vials, so I think I'm just going to straight heal this. And we'll see. Yes, indeed. Drop me some blood vials. Excellent. That's what I was hoping would happen. Okay, I'm getting more blood gems. And I'm pretty sure that this raised section here is just a ramp to nowhere. We'll find out. Yep. Sure enough, it's a ramp to nowhere. I think depending on where that boar is, you can maybe, like, get the drop on it from up there or something, but I never bother with that. Instead, I sort of work my way past the shambling corpse and attack from behind. And, hey, look at this! That place over there looks important. What could that be? That's the boss arena. I love that they give you these glimpses, right? We found this in Old Yharnam as well. You get these, like, early ways of looking down on where some of these boss encounters are going to happen, right? And we've got this large set of gravestones here with the trees growing over them. And then we've got that very important looking door. You can already see the fog door, right? Showing that, you know, you're going to not be able to easily progress through there. So that's interesting. Okay. Oh, also, something was tickling at the back of my head when I was talking about the lake and the deep sea runes. And I've traditionally thought, and I think I may have mentioned this even in this series, that when they say that large bodies of water, large volumes of water, serve as a, like, severance or a bulwark protecting sleep, I've always interpreted this as, like, protecting the sleep of, like, the greater beings because of the idea of, like, Cthulhu dreaming among the deeps, right? And if it ever wakes, it's a problem, right? And I think Lovecraftian horror, cosmic horror is a big part of Bloodborne. I've talked about it before. You may or may not place the game in that genre personally. I know some people have some quibbles with that, depending on the ending you get and that sort of thing. But I do think that it's interesting to think about. First of all, to finish one thought before going back to the other one, I do think that Bloodborne is in conversation with those sorts of works, right? I do think that Lovecraftian horror, cosmic horror, is a notable influence on this game, one way or the other. And as far as this particular set of runes is concerned, I wonder, and this is literally the first time this has fully occurred to me here, I wonder if the sleep that's being protected is our sleep in the dream, maybe our sleep of death. Maybe that's what's going on here. Going back to my crazy lore theory, right? We're experiencing the sleep of death, where we have these different dreams that are coming at us, and the large volumes of water serve to separate the effects of like one version of reality from another. Yeah, you can tell this is a very newly formed idea because I have no idea what to do with it. All right. Well, it's occurred to me. I brought it up in passing. I'll continue to think on that because it's always been a little bit strange to me, that particular wording about how large volumes of water serve as a severance protecting sleep, right? Literally, or even if you accept the sort of easier to grasp idea of a bulwark. All right, please start to transform. Nope. Okay. Please start to. Thank you. Gives me an opportunity to get a backstab that I haven't taken on any of your buddies. That I would like to now take on you. Oh, that was enough. I thought the reason these things had such a wide health pool was to enable them to survive that sort of backstab visceral combo, but I haven't really been boosting skill, which is the thing that's most strongly tied to, what's it called? The thing that's most strongly tied to visceral attacks and visceral attack damage, and that enemy is no more, so look at that. Also, we finally have it. Yay, I get to talk more about, like, cool things I've noticed about runes. This is another one of my independent discoveries that I happen to be rather attached to. All right, so this is the leftward spiraling metamorphosis rune. I talked to the anti-clockwise metamorphosis, talked about that in the last episode. This is the rightward spiraling metamorphosis rune, right? Clockwise metamorphosis. And we can look at the descriptions, and you can see that only the third line, once again, is changing. The things that are changing, right? This one is being identified as that which spirals leftward, that which is anti-clockwise. This is being identified as that which spirals rightward, that which is spiraling clockwise. So there's that first difference. And then the final difference in the second half of the line, basically, this one has the effect of raising HP. This one has the effect of raising stamina. And I talked before about how I sort of like the idea that you can think of the different sorts of bloods, right? The Healing Church's blood recovers HP and then continues to recover HP. And what do they consider to be like forbidden, evil, vile blood? Blood that is of the line of Ariana. It's blood that recovers HP, but then continually recovers stamina. So I think there's a sense in which, HP and stamina are sort of like the two quote-unquote physical stats, and they are in opposition to each other. And what do we have here? We have the rightward spiraling metamorphosis, which is sort of the antithesis of the leftward spiraling metamorphosis, and the one boosts HP, and the other boosts stamina. Isn't that interesting? Also, I really like to, when I was talking about how you can sort of get this sort of hidden correlation between the mechanics of the lakes and the deep seas and read into the repeated text in that way. I like the idea that you can almost sort of form this unified visual, right? Because each one of these is a twisted cross, right? An undulating or twisted cross, and the difference is which direction that cross has been twisted. So it potentially hints at that sort of underlying connection, right? You have the idea of the cross, which represents your physical quote-unquote attributes. Because I keep saying quote-unquote because even though your health is sort of your vitality, it's restored by euphoric feeling. And I don't think it's in 1.00, but in later versions of the game, you can bring up a little descriptor, and it'll talk about how your HP represents your will to keep going. So there's a sense in which it's not as purely physical as you would be like led to believe. So, you know, that's why I sort of hedge when I say physical, right? We have the idea of your will to keep going in the form of your HP and how much you're like experiencing the like thrill of the hunt to some extent. Maybe it's a little bit hazy what exactly HP is represented, how it's restored, how it's blocked from being restored, right? The numbing mist stops the euphoric feeling and stops the healing at the same time, right? So there's that connection as well. It's a little bit hazy, basically, what exactly HP is meant to represent. Stamina also seems to be a physical thing, also seems to have something to do, like, obviously as a mechanic, right, it controls how many moves, how many attacks you can do, the idea being that you get tired, right? So I don't know how non-physical that idea is, but, right, you can postulate the existence of a non-twisted, right, just a regular cross that represents your physical attributes as a whole, right, your HP and your stamina. Twist it one way, boost HP, because it's been metamorphized, right, it's been transformed, so that because of the twisting, sort of representing the transformation, you've twisted more to increase your HP, or you've twisted more to increase your stamina, even though that both are potentially represented in the unified version of the cross. So, yeah, there's my idea. Not, like, world-changing, revolutionizing, like, lore-shattering, but I like it. I think it's a cool little bit of sort of, I don't know, I guess synchronicity, like a little bit of an underlying thought process behind what's going on with the runes that I think is kind of cool. And if we come all the way up here, I don't think there's an item, yeah. But we can see this is where, if we want, we can get a drop on this one snake that has its back so very well protected up against a cliff, thinks it's all safe. No. We can totally wreck its day if we want. But I don't particularly want to wreck its day because that would send me very far backwards in the Forbidden Woods. And I don't want to be far backwards in the Forbidden Woods. I want to be at the end of the Forbidden Woods. But yeah, definitely worth this detour to pick up the other Metamorphosis rune here by this gigantic, probably gravestone? I don't know exactly what you'd call this monolith, but it looks like a giant grave. So we'll go with that. Anyway, let's come down here and finish my, constantly putting off what's going on here. I could go back to the dream if I want it to be safe, but let's live dangerously. Let's do it. I don't want to kill the progress. We've been going for a good length here. I think a nice, fun boss fight would be a good end to the episode. Let's see what awaits us down here. Look at this. It's the Shadows of Yharnam, right? So each one of these HP bars says Yharnam no Kage, Shadow of Yharnam. Very literally. Kage means shadow, Yharnam is Yharnam, and the no in between lets you know that, like, the one has something to do with the other. Okay. And now, I think what I want to do is focus on this caster version here. Not the hybrid caster, the full caster. Oh, I dodged out of the way. And I really want to be focusing on the one. And as I hit all three. Because their health bars, like, sort of end up combining. Yeah, stay away from me. So you get these transformations that happen. And there we go. I really want one of them to be dead by the time that particular transformation takes hold. And I like to kill the caster first back there. The one that with the weapon that looks like the Tonitrus. And then I like to kill... so in theory, I should be able to get... Are you just going to keep dodging? Oh, it's dodging because I'm shooting. Bloodborne does this thing where, like... certain enemies are, like, guaranteed to have something work. And that extendo arm there... that extendo arm there is why I don't want 3 of these things around. Maybe I should be saving this thing, because it doesn't get quite as annoying with the extendo arm. Oh, never mind. I take it all back! I didn't want that one. You see, it's got these dodges? It's got these, like, auto dodges that are very annoying. You know what? I'm going to go back to this strategy. It's been working for me. What I should be doing is there is a central grave right here. And this thing in particular can be used to divide these enemies from one another and provide you more opportunities of focusing on one or the other. Okay. Keep moving. Keep moving me. Alright. Yep, spits fire. They missed, which is going to allow me to get in some hits, and I'm just going to keep moving because I know the other one's close by. See if I can't use some more of these gravestones. It doesn't have to be the gigantic one. The gigantic one is just the most effective. Alright. Uh-huh. I see you. I see you. Don't use the extendo arm. Can I get them both? Sort of. One and then the other, completely unintentionally. Alright. Don't want to use my stamina too much. Uh-oh. Well, that was interesting. I'm not quite sure what happened there. That'll be an interesting thing to watch back in editing. Extendo arm. No! The snake extension arm. It's so annoying. So I do like the way that the other, like, the transforming snake enemies, right? These are sort of like the ultimate version of them. So you've been fighting the transformed snake enemies in the woods the whole time? Alright. You know what? No, no, oh, don't transform attack. Woo. This has to be the silliest version of the Shadows of Yharnam fight I have ever seen. Uh-oh. Oh, I walked right into it. That attack really hurts. That's sort of, once you get down to this phase in the fight, that's the attack you don't want to have happen to you. And I just tanked it. Alright, I only have 3 blood vials left. Here's the thing. If I just keep walking up against this enemy and attacking like a madman, there's not a whole lot he can do. Because the rally system is going to be my friend, I say, before, like, completely abandoning the rally system. 2 blood vials. If I win this, I swear, I don't deserve it. I do not deserve to win this fight. Alright, but summoning is probably going to happen behind me, so I'm just going to move, forward. Out of blood vials. Am I going to get what I deserve? Am I going to get what I deserve? I might not. One more summoning. Alright, you know what I'm going to do, though? I'm going to cut off your head. Do I have to survive the attack? No. Did you see how ridiculous that was? Oh, you saw my blood vials? I just tanked huge amounts of damage, terribly wandered my way around the boss arena, failed to use the cover to great effect, couldn't parry to save my life, and you know what? I won. I beat all 3 of them. Oh, man. If this had been a higher New Game Plus cycle or something, I would have been doomed. But am I, like, over-leveled? It doesn't feel like I'm at, like, that far ahead of the leveling curve. I didn't go into the Chalice Dungeons. I didn't mention this at the start of the episode. I haven't gone anywhere near the Chalice Dungeons. This is exactly where I lift things off on, so I don't know. Like, the skill floor in Bloodborne is apparently higher than I thought it was. To be fair, I have died to these enemies quite a lot of times, right? Like, when I first played this game, I thought, it's totally not fair. There's 3 enemies against 1. This is a ridiculous roadblock. How can I cheese this enemy to death? And I couldn't really find anything except, you know, use the cover of these stones. And then when it's down to 1 enemy, you can sort of rush that 1 enemy down and keep them sort of stun locked on attacks. Actually, if I had had my Beast Roar out, it might have been a good opportunity to, like, when I ran out of stamina, I switched to the Beast Roar. Potentially kept the enemy locked down even further. I didn't do any of that. I didn't do anything smart. I didn't do anything skilled, except, you know, just barely skilled enough to, you know, pass the test that is this fight. So, there you have it. There is the craziest version of the Shadows of Yharnam fight I think I've seen in, like, any of my playthroughs that's been successful. I'm going to jump back to the dream on the off chance that in between episodes I'll have time to do some Chalice Dungeoneering. I'm still a little bit not quite where I want to be with the other playthrough for Yosefka, the Imposter Yosefka dialogue, but I want to give myself the opportunity. All right. So, we're back here in the Hunter's Dream. Once again, I will let you know if I do have that opportunity to do some Chalice Dungeoneering off screen. And if not, then oh well, right? We'll press forward. We're going to be changing direction a little bit. Like, I want to go a little bit further, and then we'll back off and explore some of the other directions, some of the other branches to the paths that I've been ignoring. But we'll get into all that next time. For now, I'm going to call an end to my hunt for the evening, and I wish all of you good hunting.